That's why, the first step here is to kind of raise awareness about it, let people know this is happening, it is a problem. And then the reaction, I think, from every average American is, dear Lord, that's horrific, let's do something about it. And then
he's lining it all out. I mean, obviously not straight up saying, and then it's a good thing that they call him those bomb threats or those death threats, but this is basically what I want to happen. I want to lie, because that's what they're doing. They're just lying through their teeth about what's taking place at these hospitals, get everyone very, very afraid, and then they're like, what the f***? And then they take appropriate action because of the implication.
The people who tend to fight wars are typically very patriotic, very male people. I mean, I'm sorry to break it to you, but this has been the truth about military warfare for literally all of human history. And the institution of traditional masculinity has been core to that idea. But we're a society that doesn't believe in traditional masculinity. Traditional masculinity is an opponent because traditional masculinity requires roles. It says that men are supposed to protect. Men are supposed.
What is going on here? Was this a conscious decision, I wonder? Was it one of those, like, I'm going to talk about masculinity. I better +1 my masculinity before I do that. What's the most masculine thing I could do? I've shown everyone the gun show. I've bought the single stick of wood. That was pretty masculine. I went to Home Depot and I got 1 wood, please. Yes, I'd like to buy wood. 1 wood. And then walked out with that. What else could I do? I've done the cowboy hat. I've held the gun, which is basically a second cock. There's nothing more masculine than having 2 cocks. So what else can I do? Beard. Beard, that's it.
Supposed to defend. Men are supposed to be strong. Men are supposed to be fathers and husbands. These are apparently very bad things now. You're not supposed to say these things.
No, they're fine. It's just weird if that's the only option that people should do. But if you want to be a husband, you want to be a father, that's totally fine and normal.
Joining us online is Matt Walsh, host of the Matt Walsh Show on Daily Wire Plus, star of the hit documentary What is a Woman and Why?
Okay, the Daily Come basically is trying to push off their own films as the hit, right? Like, by what metrics? You don't release your own numbers. By Daily Wire standards, maybe you do have a massive user base. I'm sure your crowd loves it. The rest of the world wasn't as impressed outside of, the far right circles, but...
Walrus fan Matt, great to talk to you.
hey, thanks for having me.
And I'll just say right now, I don't have your walrus. So let's start with what's going on over at Vanderbilt University Medical Center. So obviously, every time you cover one of these stories about an institution that is focused on transing the children, meaning chemically castrating them, sterilizing them physically when they reach a certain age, mutilating them, when you focus on this stuff, the left's immediate response is that you're a terrorist and you're engaged in acts of violence against hospitals that are doing actual violence to minors. I'm not sure what's actually been going on.
So let's break this down before we get into this right away. Matt Walsh lives at TikTok. They have been lying that these hospitals, children's hospitals, are performing hysterectomies on kids. Their evidence to this has been a recorded phone call where Libs at TikTok, Higher Right Check, basically spoke to 2 different receptionists, hospital receptionists, and they were trying to direct them to the right people to talk to because they don't have, of course, the expertise as well as the ability to sign off on medical procedures because they are not doctors. They are the hospital receptionists. It is very hard work, by the way. I'm not trying to downplay their work. It is important. It is crucial. Without them, there would be a absolute chaos disaster that is the organizational structure of a hospital. But they are not authorities and do not have the ability to sign off as if it is a factual statement on whether or not they are performing hysterectomies on kids. They both times in their phone calls tried to say, well, let me pass you on. I'm going to get the department to call back to you. They can talk to you. And then they would press and be like, well, but yes, but my kid is 16. Is that okay? And it's like, maybe we'll get you to that department. Well, can I get a yes or no answer? It's like, yeah, probably. We'll get you to get a call back. That's evidence of nothing. That, like, it is the thinnest straw that I've seen someone try to use to be like, I have direct evidence of this happening. Yes. What would be better evidence is, and I'm sure because this is a phenomenon that is horrifying and happening on such a scale, if you had hundreds and hundreds of people who could come forward and be like, yes, this hospital performed an unwanted hysterectomy on me when I was a kid. Why not bringing all those people out? Like, because again, if this is a phenomenon that requires people to take immediate action to stop, there should be thousands of cases, thousands upon thousands of cases of this, but there's not. So it kind of seems like it's just stochastic terrorism ultimately, because the Boston Children's Hospital has had 2 bomb threats called in now. Someone was arrested, and the person who was arrested was repeating the exact kind of lines that Matt Walsh, Ben Shapiro had all been promoting over and over. You'd think Ben Shapiro, after the Quebec mosque shooter, would learn what directly lying to audiences, what effects that can have, but apparently not.
Going on at Vanderbilt University Medical Center.
Well, what's been going on at Vanderbilt University Medical Center is actually what's happening in hospitals and medical clinics all across the country. I'm happy that people are focused on Vanderbilt right now, and there is a major scandal there, but it's also part of a larger problem, which is an important point here. So when you hear about what's happening in Nashville, what's happening in Vanderbilt, it's not. If you live somewhere else, you shouldn't be saying to yourself, "Well, thank God I don't live there where they do that sort of thing." So at Vanderbilt, they chemically castrate children with drugs like puberty blocking drugs, which is chemical castration. They give them irreversible hormone treatments, and they also do double mastectomies on adolescent girls. So they're surgically mutilating and also drugging kids in irreversible ways. We found, and when I say found, we
So Matt has kind of changed his tune a little bit. He's trying to fine-tune these talking points. I guess maybe there was a little bit of fear after the FBI went after one of the people who did the bomb threat. That could be it. But it's no longer the hysterectomies, moving on to the double mastectomies, as well as the chemical castration, which has been a talking point of Matt on the right for a while now. But yes, this is what they're speaking about.
just dug up videos that Vanderbilt had posted itself admitting to all of this. And we also found other videos where they talk about, the profit motive behind all of this, which
Okay. Are you going to play the video, or do I have to go to Matt Walsh's channel? Nope, that's an ad. Okay, maybe we'll just take a quick detour because I want to see the evidence. Matt Walsh is really good at presenting his facts and figures, right? Miscarriage or abortion, what's next? Steps of the Vanderbilt investigation, public school defends, shaming, they want to trans your kids, government is making it easier, Don Lemon gets demoted, Jimmy Kimmel might be canceled. Nashville, is this the one? Call for my arrest after I exposed. Okay, maybe it's this one. I just want to see the evidence.
So we've spent plenty of time in recent weeks discussing the horrific, unethical, dangerous, and $1,000 when you factor in all of the follow-ups that are necessary. Listen.
All right.
Starting in January 1st of 2017, according to the Affordable Care Act, insurance carriers are mandated to cover medical expenses for trans folks. Some of our BUMC financial folks in October of 2016, starting a couple of years ago, put down some costs of how much money we think each patient would bring in. And this is only including top surgery. This isn't including any bottom surgery. And it's a lot of money. These surgeries make a lot of money. So female to male chest reconstruction can bring in $40,000.
They're talking about adults. I hope everyone knows that. I don't know if Matt does. I'm pretty sure he does because he's very disingenuous. But they're talking about adults. This is not procedures for kids yet, by the way. This is under the Affordable Care Act. These procedures will be covered. Wow. Okay, good start.
A patient just on routine hormone treatment, who I'm only seeing a few times a year, can bring in several $1,000s. That requires a lot of visits and labs. It actually makes money for them.
Yeah, so is your issue with capitalism or profit motives behind hospital procedures? What the hell is up with these dirty fucking commies? Matt Walsh and Ben Shapiro.
Now, these I got from the internet, but it's from the Philadelphia Center for Transgender Surgery, which does a lot of surgery for patients. And I just want to give you an idea of how much these bottom surgeries are making. And I think this has to be an underestimate. This is for a vaginoplasty. They're quoting roughly.
Oh my god. This is for adults. These are procedures for adults. You fucking clowns. Once again.
Around $20,000 for a vaginoplasty, but that doesn't include your hospital stay. That doesn't include your...
You have to be 18 or plus to get a vaginoplasty. And yes, this is someone promoting the fact that they will be able to make a lot of money from these procedures. Your problem then might be with the profit motive behind the hospitals, not the procedures themselves. These very same kind of talks are given for a multitude of things, where it's like, we just now like to introduce this very new form of chemotherapy. It is proven to be effective in certain cases. It is also very, very expensive. So we could be getting anywhere from $30,000 to $40,000 a client if we use this new technology, blah, blah, blah. Like this kind of stuff is part and parcel with a for-profit medical system.
Post-op visits. That doesn't include your anesthesia, your OR. So I underestimate. I think that's just like the surgeon's piece of it, which anybody who's ever been in the hospital knows that that's like.
Like I've said this before, the bar is so high for the left to try and push back against these people because all they have to do is show this clip out of context, and then this was enough. This was enough to be like, we have uncovered and leaked a now viral video showing evidence, direct evidence that they want a for-profit motive to chemically castrate and mutilate children. Like this is it. We have it, and like they can't run from it anymore. And it's like, you motherfuckers, this individual, yes, is promoting the amount of money that they can make from procedures for adults. Vaginoplasties are given to adults.
10% of it.
Also, One Less Name has a good little thing on the chemical castration call out. HRT is not chemical castration. Some forms of HRT come with the risk of the patient becoming sterile as a side effect, but not all forms of HRT will guaranteed render the patient sterile. In some cases, it may render them infertile, while their fertility would be restored if they stop taking blockers and HRT. Some trans men and non-binary people on HRT are still able to get pregnant if they don't practice safe sex.
And in the female-to-male bottom surgeries, these are huge money makers. Again, I think this has to be an underestimate that they're quoting around $20,000 for a phalloplasty. There's been different things that I've read that said it could be up to $100,000.
I wonder how they feel about girls getting breast implants. Well, like, that's the thing. Would they be freaking out if someone came forward here and was like, so I just want to tell you about a number of procedures. We have a brand new form of silicone. It is much safer than our previous ones. For breast implants, we're looking at anywhere between $9,000 to $10,000 for a pair. We think that this is going to be a very good profitable motive for our cosmetic surgery line. Like, if they were saying that, would Matt Walsh be like, and here we have direct evidence of them saying they want to actually increase the size of women's breasts for money. This is outrageous. This is expansion milk porn. Once again, Tucker Carlson was right. They want to make boobies inflate to untold, unparalleled degrees. It's going to be outrageous.
Dr. Winokur, who's our surgeon, says that there's entire clinics where the entire clinic is supported just by their phalloplasties, and that is like a fraction of the surgeries that they're doing. These surgeries are labor intensive. They require a lot of follow-ups. They require a lot of OR time.
And they're done on adults. Oh my God, Matt. So this was your evidence.
They make money for the hospital.
Vaginoplasty, phalloplasty. Two things that she was talking about there. Both of them, yes, could very well be very expensive and profitable for a hospital. Both done on adults. Those are adult procedures.
Now, profitable though it may be, there are some medical professionals who take the Hippocratic Oath seriously and object to carving up a person's body in this way. Vanderbilt was apparently concerned that some of their own staff might.
Well, I'm glad that's the level of discourse we're dealing with here. Good job, Ben. Thanks for platforming this guy and amplifying his fucking lies.
Again, is not really much of a revelation. It shouldn't be a surprise. Like, of course, they're driven by profit. I guess it's not a big surprise, but we did find a doctor who talks about how she convinced Nashville to get into the gender transition game to begin with, and she says that.
Look at these filthy commies, huh? Talking about how they don't want the profit motive to be in medical procedures now. I mean, I, for one, as a proud capitalist, just think, I don't know what's wrong with the two of you. I mean, what's going on here? But yeah, some people are just postmodern neo-Marxists, I guess.
Yeah, she told him it's the right thing to do, but also, in large part, it's a big moneymaker, which were her exact words. And she goes into some of the details about how much money
for-profit
there is to
healthcare,
be made from this. And one of the reasons why you make so much money as a hospital is because, as she says, there's lots of follow-ups, which is another way of saying that when you do this to somebody.
Yeah, I mean, you got to, checkups or after you've had a major surgery? I mean, they're supposed to see if everything's working out. I mean, what the fuck is up with that, you know? I mean, fucking all of a sudden I get some kind of a replacement for an organ, and then they're like, oh, you got to be on this medication so that your autoimmune system doesn't start attacking it. And then I got to get checkups, and they test my blood and stuff. Fucking, what a racket. What a racket. Why don't I just go home and live my life, you know?
They are now a patient for life, and so they're worth hundreds of thousands of dollars to you. And then we also had another video of someone at Vanderbilt, explaining that if you conscientiously object, you don't want to participate as a staff member, a medical provider at this hospital, then that's problematic, which is another, sort of putting, it would seem to be pressure on staff members to take part, even if they don't want to. So it's all kind of, that's the overall story at Vanderbilt. But like I said, this is the story at hospitals all across the country, too.
Matt, one of the things that's so fascinating here is that you guys have delved into what were the origins of this over at Vanderbilt University. And as you pointed out, this stuff starts as ideology. And then
I thought these conservatives wanted doctors to make money. Well, I guess they're making a full-on turn because they're both a bunch of filthy communists now. That's the way I'm reading this, and I'm going to continue to say that. But yeah, I guess it's just they would love the profit motive and the untold and unparalleled amounts of profit that the medical system in the U.S. makes for a select few, as long as it's procedures they agree with. So for anything they don't like, you know? Like for Ben Shapiro, if it's anything to help women achieve more lubrication or moisturization in that area, you know, you've heard of the WAP, for example. He's against that. He does not want that to be in part of medical science. He doesn't want that to be discussed. Doesn't want that to even be investigated. He takes a very strong stance against that. So in that case, that's horrifying, and no one should ever have to deal or speak of that again. But in the case of, you know, maybe someone receiving a hip bone replacement, he would be okay with that, making tons of money.
And it moves into the actual, you know, cutting up minors. It started off, it sounds like, as the Vanderbilt program for LGBTQ health, which was basically an incubator and pretty clearly an ideological incubator. And then that was more.
By the way, I had a woman in my high school who had enormous breasts, and they were so large, so they were causing her back problems. They were causing her, she couldn't jog, she was having a lot of stuff. So she got a breast reduction. That happens quite frequently. And it's not something brought up by these weirdos as being like, oh, fucking, were they mutilating a teenage girl? Were they making her breasts smaller? Fucking mutilation? Well, yeah, it was a medical procedure because, again, the breasts were a problem for her and it was causing problems in her life. So she wanted a reduction and was much happier after the fact. But was that mutilation? Was she mutilated by those doctors because she's a cis woman and they reduced the size of her breasts?
Over into, what if we actually just start, you know, chemically castrating children and then sterilizing them and permanently altering their physical features?
Right. That's how it began. So you start with the ideology, the LGBT center, and then they get into gender transition, and then very quickly what grows from that is now we got to bring children in and start doing many of these same things to kids too. But we know, of course, it's all.
So lies, by the way. Again, vaginoplasties, phalloplasties, not done to children. They've been lying about this since day one. They've been constantly pushing this rhetoric. And again, it sucks because it puts everyone else in a position to have to be like, you're factually incorrect, and here's why. And by that point, it's like, oh, you lost me. This guy's saying that they're cutting up kids. Okay, that this is important. We got to talk about that. Fucking, this is scary stuff.
All ideology because there is no medical or scientific justification for this. And we know that because over the last few days, as Vanderbilt.
Every major medical association in the United States agrees that gender dysphoria is real, and there are steps that can be taken to try and alleviate it. It's not something that is done lightly. It is not something that is done someone just like, there's no mills. People don't walk into doctors' offices and they're like, oh, do you want to have your breasts cut off today? Is that what you're looking for? Well, we'll do whatever you want. Just tell us what you need. You know, we just want to make the money, those sweet dollars. It is very recognized by the medical association. So they're lying out of their asses here. This is just a couple of old bigots who can't wrap their heads around a handful of concepts, and so they just want to turn to more bigotry. And you know what's fucked is that they're getting hospitals and people who work at hospitals, they have hard fucking lives. It's not easy, okay? It's not easy to be a nurse or to be a doctor, especially not now post-pandemic when people seem to think that COVID doesn't exist or that it's just gone. It's a very, very hard life. It's a hard job. I have friends who are nurses. A lot of them are worked to the fucking bone. And now they have to deal with these assholes getting all their other asshole fans to call in death threats, bomb threats, and other shit like that, in addition to the stress they're already dealing with. Like, it's fucking ghoulish beyond belief.
Has been in the headlines, much to its chagrin. There haven't been any, I haven't heard anyone on the left come out and actually offer a scientific, evidence-based defense of this. Instead, it's a lot of deflection. It's as you.
Every major medical association in the United States agrees with this. There's your, like, look at any of the studies, the literature, any of it.
You mentioned, calling us terrorists. Fortunately for Vanderbilt here, they have some of the local media is good, but other local media outlets are acting as de facto PR representatives for Vanderbilt. So they have that advantage going for them. But what they're not doing is actually laying out like, okay, yes, it's good to give chemical castration drugs to kids. Here's the.
But again, you don't care. Like you're just lying right now. You've been lying this entire time. It's like you can be presented with overwhelming amounts of evidence because it is directly in refutation of everything you say. And not just the evidence from a medical standpoint. What about the statistics and the studies on the people who regret transition? Like every major study that comes out, and the most recent one was one that was done on children who then grew up to be adults. And what was their transitional regret? It was less than 5%. And of that 5%, those who said that they did detransition did so overwhelmingly because of social pressure, because of social stigma, which again seems to be the root cause of a lot of these people's problems. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't, you can't, like, there's no amount of evidence, facts, and figures you can throw at these people where they're actually going to sit back and be like, oh, okay, well, that makes sense. It's like every other form of bigotry. Like, if you were to go to Stefan Molyneux and be like, it's actually phrenology and quackery that you think that black brains and white brains have different weights and different IQs as a result of that. That's 100%. And he'll be like, oh, no, there's absolutely no science or studies that can refute what I'm saying right now. It's fact. It's an unfortunate fact.
Yeah.
You know, you might not want to agree with it. You might not want to have to accept it, but it is fact. It's fact, and that's just what it is.
Evidence that we have, here's the data, here are the long-term studies, and we're going to defend it. They're not doing that, and they can't because, of course, there aren't any long-term studies vindicating
There's an
these sorts
overwhelming
of procedures.
amount of
So
studies
instead, all we have
actually.
is just deflection and ad hominem and those sorts of things.
You know, Matt, why do you think it is that in the United States, I think people have a misperception in the United States of just how radical you're.
I remember a scene in What is a Vagina where you were talking to a gender studies teacher and you just spent time answering your questions. And you just zoned out and played silly music. Yeah, that case in point. It's like, hey, here's an overwhelming amount of studies, history, data, science. And then it's just like, boring, listen to the fucking academia, liberal elite here. Still can't tell me what a woman is.
Europe is versus the United States. The truth is that in the United States, we are far more radical on this issue than even Europe. You're seeing European countries that are now banning the use of puberty blockers for young people because they're saying this does permanent damage to their body. You're seeing transgender clinics shut down in places like Britain because they're realizing, oh, wait a second, it turns out that we generally mutilate.
It would seem that Turf Island is a bit worse for the trans people after all. So yes,
a bunch of kids who actually just had autism. So, you know, why is it, do you think, that the United States has bought so deeply into this, that the left in the United States has gone so much further than the left in many of these other European countries?
Did Ben glue pubes to his face? It could be a merkin. We're not sure. The jury's out on that one. He definitely wants to appear a little bit more masculine. He's going for a more masculine look. So, you know, it's the daily cum sock with your masculinity report.
I think it's a combination of things. So first you have the LGBT.
Or maybe he's doing that thing sometimes that straight people do when they want to emulate one of their friends because they think they're more masculine. So maybe it's like Matt Walsh is coming on. Matt Walsh has a beard. I don't. Maybe I should start growing a little stubble just so when he comes, like, just so it's not that big of a juxtaposition between like my shaven face and his manly beard, because it's very manly, because that's what a man is, if nothing else, just a beard.
Sort of agenda, which has a lot of institutional power in this country. But then you combine that with the fact that a kind of general ignorance of in the American public of you know, people that just don't know this is going on, and largely that's not their fault because there's not anyone telling them about it. I mean,
and that's what sucks is that these two motherfuckers are the ones telling everybody about it, but like it makes the entire thing seem utterly and completely absurd. And you'll get normies who are like, look, I don't hate trans people. You do whatever you want to do when you're an adult. I'm just really scared that we're going after kids and that we're giving them irreversible surgeries and all these pills that like change their bodies and all this other stuff. Like, we have to stop this. This cannot continue.
We're telling them about it, but they don't have the institutions they rely on to pass along information aren't telling them this. So I think that, you know, the average American certainly is not more radically in favor of this kind of thing than the average European, and yet these sorts of things are happening here because people don't know about it. And that's what always strikes me when I'm talking to people, that if maybe they saw What is a Woman or they've heard some of our reporting of the Daily Wire, what I hear all the time is, man, I had no idea this was going on until you guys told me about it. And so I think that's what allows a lot of this to happen. And then that's why, you know, the first step here is to kind of raise awareness about it, let people know this is happening, it is a problem. And then the reaction, I think, from every average American is, dear Lord, that's horrific, let's do something about it. And then
he's lining it all out. I mean, obviously not straight up saying, and then it's a good thing that they call in those bomb threats or those death threats, but this is basically what I want to happen. I want to lie, because that's what they're doing. They're just lying through their teeth about what's taking place at these hospitals, get everyone very, very afraid, and then they're like, what the fuck? And then they take appropriate action because of the implication.
And then you have to go to the next step, which is, okay, we've raised awareness. Now it's time to actually do something.
We'll get to more with Matt in just.
Oh, yes, but what's going to sponsor us today? Oh, Good Ranchers.
Of the Daily Wire. They sponsor all of our shows, so help them out as well.
Wait, is that what your catered meals look like? Is it just a giant pot of macaroni? This looks like a Swanson dinner. You're so rich. You have so much money. I mean, I'm actually kind of happy. I'm glad you're feeding this to Matt Walsh. This is all he deserves.
They sponsor all
Oh, yeah. Oh, Maddie's going to get a nice little macaroni dinner.
of our shows, so help them. How serious is the push in Tennessee to actually ban this sort of quote-unquote treatment?
It looks worse than prepper food. I don't know. I don't know how that's possible. Maybe it is. Maybe they just have the slop buckets behind the scenes, and then they're just like, oh yeah, we'll make a whole bunch of catered meals for you. All we need is hot water. That's it. Just some hot water, and we got the buckets, and we're ready to go.
For minors.
It's very serious. So we met personally with some of our state legislators and talked about this, talked about working on a bill to ban these procedures. We know, as you mentioned, the governor's investigating it as well.
What's so fucked is like, this is just a repeat of the old fucking race science shit when they were actually trying to like justify things like eugenics and phrenology based on cranial sizes, and then later on in IQ levels. And it's like, well, I mean, we should really demonstrate here that it seems like Black Americans have much lower IQs than white Americans. I was like, well, what are you demonstrating? What is the study that you're doing? What is the information that you're gathering proving? Because to me, when you look at these numbers, it's showing a very difference in money, in economic conditions, in the schooling systems of these areas, and the amount of poverty and the amount of problems that poverty creates. That's what this seems to be a number basis of, not in that is there an inherent difference in intelligence between races, because we know there's not, because race doesn't exist. So this is super fucking weird that you're trying to prove this.
Well, the Attorney General has said that there's going to be an investigation. Now, the investigation is important because it's possible that some of what Vanderbilt is doing goes outside of the current law. I don't know. It's possible.
The same things they used for gay people 50 years ago. Yeah, well, not even 50 years ago. Fucking look at the AIDS scare of the 80s. And during that time, the amount of junk science that was coming out. People believed that just by being in the presence of gay people, you could potentially catch AIDS. Or like if you ate off the plate that a gay person had used 12 meals ago, even though it's been washed and bleached, you could potentially catch AIDS. Or if you touch a gay person, that could give you the AIDS. Like, it was all pseudoscience.
But even if it doesn't, the larger issue here is the law itself. Like, the law does allow them to chemically castrate and mutilate children. Right now, the law allows that, so that's the issue, and we have to change the law. And there's enormous support, not just from legislators here, but also just from the public, that of course we should ban this.
Like, what about circumcision? Circumcision has been permitted for a long time. I don't see you making it special about it. I don't see you screaming outrage about it. I don't see you talking about this. It's something that has been taking place in hospitals across the board in Western countries. Is that something you want to bring up? Is this a huge problem now? Is this like a massive issue that needs attention? That's perfectly legal.
Like, obviously we should not be mutilating kids. And if anyone is going to make this kind of decision, it at a minimum should be when they're at a point when they can legally consent to life-altering decisions.
Matt, one of the things that really is amazing is how many.
So, do you apply that broadly to any procedure that a kid wants? Like, if a kid had cancer and needed chemotherapy, would you be like, oh, we can't give him chemotherapy? Not until he's an adult, I mean, most likely, if we don't do this procedure, he will not live to become an adult. But at the same time, he can't consent towards it, and so neither should his parents. We'll just not allow the kid to have this procedure.
Republican politicians are not taking up this banner. I mean, you were.
Ben with the stubble's hilarious. I mean, it's the only funny thing about this really scary segment that they're constantly amplifying.
Saying on Twitter this morning that basically this issue is gift wrapped for Republicans because every Democrat now says at least that they abide by the strictures of the LGBTQIA plus minus divided by sign agenda. The basic idea.
Oh, did you hear that joke he slipped in there? Plus, minus, divide sign. Hee, fun stuff. Let's hear drunk Matt Walsh.
So across the country, but it's a political it's a winning issue politically. I think that
So he's not wrong in that there's a reason why Republicans are choosing very contentious issues, because they think they automatically have moral authority on them, and it does pull well with people, because at the end of the day, normies don't understand some of these issues, and when you try to explain it to them in terms that Matt Walsh and Ben Shapiro do, it's very scary. Here's we get to that in 1 second. Here's very easy pushback against that in politics. If you have Matt Walsh's, Ben Shapiro's, and by extension their scary MTGs and the Bobirds coming out there and be like, the Democrats want to chemically castrate your kids. We don't. We're on the other side. The response can be, I think medical procedures involving kids are none of my fucking business, and I think only a pervert would want to insert or involve themselves in what a parent and their kid's healthcare is. That's disgusting and deplorable, and shame on all of you. I don't want anything to do with this. I think kids' healthcare should be between their parents and their doctors, not me. Disgusting. All of you perverts. I stay out of the genitalias of kids, you know? There you go. Easy. You don't need to be like, well, actually, he's completely lying to you about what puberty blockers actually do. They don't actually perform bottom surgery on kids. Actually, the statistics on people who detransition, it's such a small minority. It's like less than 5%. And those who do detrans, like, no one wants to listen to all. He's going to be like, listen to this perfect, like he's advocating for the mutilation of kids. Fine, that easy pushback. This should be between kids and their doctors. Stay the fuck away from the kids. Why do you want to involve yourself in the inspection of the kids' genitals? That's disgusting. Shame on all of you. You're gross.
Republicans have kind of conditioned themselves to believe, and this has been the case for decades, that nobody really cares about the social issues. All they care about is their wallet. And so we're going to talk about tax cuts and nothing else. But that, of course, isn't true. I mean, people care. People get up every day worried about their kids and about
their kids, not other people's kids. That's what perverts do. So you should probably stay the fuck away from the other kids. You wake up every day and it's like, man, I'm just so concerned about all the trans kids that exist in the world, and what can I do today to inspect their genitals a little more?
future of America, and they worry about their wallets too, and their economic security. But at an even deeper level, they're worried about the next generation and their children. And
he's good, but he's not as good as Drunk Ben. Drunk Ben is I think, one of the best drunks.
This is the case because you're not talking about kids who suffer from persistent gender dysphoria and who are going to see a psychologist or psychiatrist to try.
Because like it is 100% just the racist drunk uncles at Christmas, right? Just like, oh god, Uncle Ben's coming again. Any chance he's sober right now? Is he on the wagon? He's off the wagon, eh? Fuck. Yep, here he comes. Oh, hi Ben, really good to see you. Oh, well, yeah, you're definitely a little crabby. Okay. Yeah, no, I don't want to really hear about the elites. I don't really, no, I don't care about the globo homo agenda. I don't think it's real. No, I don't think the military is specifically recruiting gay people because they want the military to fail so that China can take over, Ben. I don't believe any of that. I think it's kind of weird. I don't know why you're still talking about it. Can we change topics? Do you enjoy the Serfs but prefer not to have to use your eyeballs? Many are saying this. Well, we've got the solution for you. It's the Serf Times in podcast form, available on most major podcasting networks now. If you enjoy it, please consider leaving a good review and feedback because it really helps the show out, apparently, and it's free, just like the podcast.
To our gods, Xander Corvus and Peyton L. Juste, we shall spend many a generations building mighty cathedrals in your honor. To our monarch, Tom Spiker, we are but your oafish jesters, here to offer you a laugh at any opportunity. To our brave knights of the Round Table, Rachel K., Izzy Solidarity, Victoria Bell, Sebastian Demmel, Mark Harmon, Benji Arney, Scary Earth Human, Tony, DM Rivera, Resident Scarecrow, Sir Nickus, Cheryl Alvarez, Ruby Kelly, Brandon, Words Greenwood, Everything Important, Hegbert Celine, Matthew Scarborough, Stellar Vision, Ariane McCarthy, Doug Cady, Daniel Sutton, Genital, Dark Puppy, Quiet One 85, Anna Loves Riley, Omni, Riley and Anna, Poodlehawk, Multimondi, Trevbot EXE, Brian Ephraim, Anthropophojack, Catherine, Ramon Acosta, Nkosin, Ralph Parler, Violent Orchard, Political Puppy, La Media Panza, Todd Buckingham, and Todd La Jeunesse. We salute our valiant heroes off to fight injustice everywhere.